Thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. My name is Chris Stevenson. We have witnessed this week the death of Muammar Mohammed Abu Minyar al-Qaddafi, best known to many of us as Colonel Qaddafi of Libya. Since 1969, Qaddafi has been absolute ruler of Libya, having taken it over in a bloodless coup back in those years. What is the legacy of Qaddafi? What's going to happen to Libya in the interim? We don't know. We know that Qaddafi had a high degree of respect throughout Africa, even though a lot of people in the Western nations really didn't like him. They always tried to frame him in a bad light. I think Qaddafi had an equal measure of good and bad in him that really can't be categorized and just picked apart based on one side of the story. Qaddafi was a complex man. Think about it, Qaddafi was captured hiding inside of a drainage pipe just outside of Libya, I think. He was beaten by a band of rebels and then shot. At some point around, he may have survived for some time after the shooting, but he was in bad shape according to what those films show of him. It's a terrible, terrible punishment and torture he had undergone. The funny thing about it is there had been worse rulers in Africa. There really have been. You know, and there may have been better rulers as well. Africa is a tricky country. It seems like the better rulers are all, well, they're open more or less for United States and Western scrutiny. If you know, the more prosperous the people, the more suspect they seem to become. You know, and this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are successful in making them prosperous. If you plan to make them prosperous, if you plan to give them just the basics, not necessarily making them all well off, but just the basics of, you know, utilities, running water, education, a roof over their head. United States government is going to look at you, guys. You know, they're going to look at you with the raised eyebrow. It's an unfortunate thing. You know, Africa is the one continent that white Americans and Europeans don't want to see succeed. It's a great fear of that. That's why you don't see a lot of industry coming out of Africa. Qaddafi's respect from other African leaders was best illustrated in 2008 when they, after a meeting with him, they declared him King of Kings. That's something that these rulers, like many of them very conceited and very megalomaniacal themselves, you know, they don't give out these titles easily. So it must have meant something to them. The funny thing about it, over the years, Libya became a very powerful oil-producing nation. They produce as much oil per capita as Saudi Arabia as far as exportation was concerned. Some people blame the energy crisis on Qaddafi because of the raised prices during that period, during the early to mid 70s. You know, it's really a strange thing going on with him. Qaddafi was a complex individual also. You know, you never know what he was going to do next. He's blamed for the bombing of Flight 103. You know, he's blamed also for the bombing of the La Belle nightclub or discotheque, whatever it was. I'm not sure that one of those bombings or one of those killings also resulted in the death of an American Air Forceman, an African American Air Force soldier, and another soldier. That's when Reagan, that was the last straw for Reagan. He went out and he bombed much of Libya. One of their pilots came very close to killing Qaddafi. He killed his daughter, killed one of his daughters. After that, Qaddafi was he was more or less very quiet for the most part for the next several years. You didn't hear from Qaddafi really again until after the capture of Saddam Hussein. During that time, Qaddafi began to disclosed that he had weapons of mass destruction and he was ready to give them up. He told the United States and the United Nations this. In between then, Qaddafi had been meeting with other African leaders over the course of time to establish what is known as an African Union or a United States of Africa. This is really a great idea, to tell you the truth. This was a continuation of ideas that were started by the late Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba. Both out of Central Africa. Really, those ideas should have been started by other black African rulers throughout the decades, but a lot of them have been bought out, trained by the CIA, and turned into billionaires, just at the cost of making sure that the people under them suffer greatly. That's how America deals with itself. That's how America deals with other nations. America's foreign policy regarding Africa is don't let the Africans become a threat. I don't mean militarily. I mean economically, independently. That's just the way it is. Qaddafi, he defied much of that. You might want to do as much research as you can regarding Colonel Qaddafi. Very interesting. October 20th was the day, like I said before, that was the day where he was captured and killed. You had to stand by to find out and figure out what's going to happen to him, or I should say, what's going to happen to Libya, the nation of Libya, as well as his children. The old saying arises in my mind: meet the new boss, same as the old boss. If he rises out of the rebels, that may not be good news. It certainly isn't good news for the black Libyans living in Libya, the indigenous Libyans. They've had to suffer very much throughout this regime of the rebel forces, which were later on backed by the United States and NATO. A lot of them were beheaded, massacred, and profiled under the excuse that they might be working for Qaddafi. They might be hired assassins by Qaddafi. A lot of these guys, a lot of these rebel forces are just white or brown-skinned Libyans who basically became worse than the Qaddafi themselves. I really believe that Obama should not skirt over this. It's bad enough that the major press, especially the New York Times, have not come down hard on the rebel forces regarding that. And by their silence, and then some people think they actually instigated some of these rebels to go after the blacks in Libya. It should be the priority, the highest priority for President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to condemn what's been going on to the black Libyans as a result of this. Just because, even if you got a justified reason to go after Qaddafi, that does not mean you go after those people. You can't separate that. You can't break that down. You can, and not only break it down, if you're the President of the United States and you have a major say-so with NATO, you can outlaw that kind of behavior. Hunt down who the worst of these violent rebel people are, I should say rebel leaders are, who have been going against the black citizens of Libya, and lock them up or execute them, whatever the case may be. Anyway, like I said before, it's the end of an era. I really don't have any feelings personally for or against Qaddafi. I thought he was an interesting person, but I didn't think that Africa was going to get too far with him. Like I said, he did some good things, but he did some bad things also. We got enough of that. We got enough people like that in the United States that I'm concerned with. So, for clbTV, thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. My name is Chris Stevenson. Have a safe week.